Today I'm sharing with you some delicious and easy recipes that have helped maintain my recent 40-pound weight loss. These are all higher in protein and low carb recipes, and it all starts with Chick-fil-A for breakfast. On the Chick-fil-A breakfast menu, they have a hash brown scramble bowl that has chunks of crispy chicken, hash browns, eggs, and cheese. It has around 29 grams of protein, but it also has 19 carbs, with the carbs mostly coming from the hash browns, but also the breading that's on the chicken. So to make a lower carb version that's also gluten-free, I'm gonna make two changes. First, I'm gonna use rutabaga in place of the hash browns. It makes an excellent replacement for potato since it's also a tuber, but it has lower carbs. You could also use a turnip. I've actually used both to replace potato when making mashed potatoes. Rutabagas have a slight sweet flavor, which I don't mind, but if you don't like that, then use a turnip. But these are both easy to shred with a cheese grater. Once you have your hash browns, we just fry them up like regular potato hash browns. So grab a skillet and heat it to medium-high heat and then drizzle in some oil down into it. Once that's heated, slide in the shredded rutabaga or turnip and then pack it down into one even layer and then sprinkle on some salt and pepper. I let that cook undisturbed until it starts to get browned on the bottom. You want these to get crispy, and it's not gonna get like that if you keep messing with it and turning it all the time. Mine are starting to get a little crispy, so before I flip them over, I drizzle on a little bit more avocado oil on top just to help the other side get crispy. And I'm not the best at this. I really do wish that I can make some diner-worthy hash browns, but I'm not a trained chef. I just play one on TV. While those hash browns are cooking, let's talk about the chicken that I'm gonna use. This is another way that I lower the carbs for this dish. I could use shredded chicken or just cubed up cooked chicken, but that's just not very fun. I could also use my recipe for crunchy chicken tenders, but that's a lot of work for the morning. Instead, I use a shortcut ingredient from Real Good Foods. I use their orange chicken. It's the perfect low carb replacement, but don't worry, we're not actually putting orange chicken into these bowls. Luckily, the sauce is packed separately, so you can just toss that out or save it for another recipe. The breading is gluten-free and low carb. Real Good Foods also makes chicken nuggets, which is the same chicken that is here, it's just without the sauce. So why am I not using that one? Well, that's because my grocery store doesn't carry that one. They only carry the orange chicken. It says here that they're 4 net carbs per serving, but that includes the sauce. If you're just having the nuggets, they're actually 3 net carbs per serving. I'm gonna cook these in my disgusting air fryer. I know it needs to be cleaned. It's been on my to-do list for several months now. I am making enough chicken bowls to have one now, one to give to my husband, and then 2 to have later. So for meal prep, you don't actually have to cook up your chicken now. I would just add the frozen chicken right to your dish when you assemble the whole thing. Checking on the hash browns, they are looking as crispy as they're gonna get, so I remove those and start to work on the scrambled eggs. Here I'm adding enough eggs to have 3 eggs per bowl. Once I have those in there, I sprinkle on some salt and then scramble these over low-medium heat until they're cooked through. My chicken is cooked, and since these are bigger pieces, I like to chop them up. Plus, that's what Chick-fil-A likes to do, and it's a Chick-fil-A bowl. We gotta do what they do, except the hash browns and the carbs and everything. Now it's time to assemble. I have my 2 meal prep containers here. I'm just gonna eyeball this and add in the hash browns first, followed by the scrambled egg, top with the chicken, and then this gets finished with some shredded cheese. These will go into the refrigerator for me to enjoy later on throughout the week. When I go to have these, I just put them in the air fryer for just 2 or 3 minutes, just until everything's heated through and the cheese is melted. But to make the one I want to have now, I'm going to use a microwave safe bowl, and I'm going to melt that cheese by popping it into the microwave, or I could use an air fryer, but the microwave is so much faster and I'm hungry now. This is perfect as it is. Each bowl has around 40 grams of protein and has around 8 to 10 net carbs, depending on if you use rutabaga and how much you put in. If you use turnip, it'll actually be lower in carbs. But if you are a true Chick-fil-A fan, you could actually top this with some Chick-fil-A sauce. I do have a recipe on my website for keto Chick-fil-A sauce. It only uses 4 ingredients and it's almost 0 carbs. Just Google KetoFocus Chick-fil-A to find it. For lunch, I wanted to try this viral TikTok recipe my friend Sarah sent me. It's a chicken Caesar salad pizza. Sounds disgusting, but it's not what you think. It's actually really good. Instead of using low-carb pizza crust, we're using a pizza crust that's made out of chicken. This serves as the chicken portion of the salad as well. I'm using my recipe for chicken crust pizza, which calls for 1 pound of ground chicken, 1 egg, a half a cup of shredded mozzarella cheese, and I'm just eyeballing that in there, 1/4 cup of grated Parmesan cheese. I use my good eye to measure that too. A teaspoon of salt, and this is optional, but I like to add it because it does add in a little bit of extra flavor. Add in a teaspoon of Italian seasoning and a half a teaspoon of garlic powder. Mix that all together. You can find the full recipe on my website, ketofocus.com, or just Google KetoFocus chicken crust pizza. Next, you grab a baking sheet and line it with parchment paper or aluminum foil, and then plop that mixture down onto the tray. This is where it gets messy. Spread it out into a round or rectangle shape that's around like a little less than a half of an inch thickness. And then this will go into the oven to bake at 450 degrees Fahrenheit for 15 minutes or until the chicken is cooked through. And then you start to see the cheese on top gets golden and it's all bubbly too. Once that's done, I let that cool for a bit while I work on the Caesar salad, which is just a bag mix. If you really want to make a killer Caesar salad with an amazing dressing to go with it from scratch, I have one on my website. It's the perfect combination of garlic, lemon, Parmesan, and anchovy. But this is just so much easier to use the bag stuff. And we really don't need the croutons, so we toss those out. Then to assemble, just top the chicken crust with the salad and then slice it into triangles and enjoy. It's a little messy if you're eating it by hand, so you just get some napkins or just use a fork. But a quarter of this pizza has around 30 grams of protein, so it's so filling. And it's the perfect recipe if you can't decide whether you want Caesar salad or pizza. I mean, you can easily have both. After lunch, I headed outside to do some yard work because these weeds seem to pop up overnight. We've had such beautiful weather this week in Central Oregon, so I decided to spend some time tackling this neglected backyard and get some vitamin D as well. But after a while, it started to get really hot, and maybe it's because I was wearing a sweatshirt, but it was time to rehydrate with some proper hydration using Element Electrolytes, my sponsor for this video. Since the summer months are here, I'm going to be outside and probably sweating a lot. And it's easy to lose water and electrolytes, especially when you're low carb. To make sure I'm properly hydrated, I mix up half to 1 packet of Element in the afternoon because each packet has 1,000 milligrams of sodium, 200 milligrams potassium, and 60 milligrams of magnesium. And this is a science-backed formula. Plus, it's sugar-free because it's sweetened with stevia, and it comes in a bunch of different flavors. Drinking a glass of these electrolytes helps to combat that afternoon fatigue that comes from being dehydrated. And right now, Element's offering my viewers a free sample pack with any drink mix purchase. So this is a great way to sample some of their flavors. To get their sample pack with any drink mix purchase, just head to drinkelement.com/ketofocus to get yours. And after a quick break, I'm ready to go again. For dinner, I thought I'd make this creamy chicken and cauliflower recipe that I found on Instagram from the Gathered Nutrition page. Figured, hey, it's a great way to sneak in some vegetables, and it looked like it had a lot of flavor, since it has feta and roasted red pepper in it too. I started using a yellow onion, but realized that it was spoiled because it didn't look quite right, so I threw it out, and luckily I had a leftover red onion in the fridge, so I diced that up instead. Then I minced up a bunch of garlic with my handy mincer. This thing minces up garlic in seconds. I'll have it linked down below if you're interested. For the cauliflower, I'm using bag florets, but they're on the larger side, so I chopped them up into a little bit smaller pieces. This is a 1-pot dish, so grab a large pot, add a glug of olive oil to that, and then saute the garlic and onion over medium heat for a few minutes. Once that smells delicious, then you add in the cauliflower, and then about 1/2 to 3/4 of a jar of roasted red peppers. You don't need the juice, just the peppers. And for the chicken, I'm using chicken thighs. I want to have enough for each portion to have around 6 ounces of chicken because that's going to add around 30 grams of protein to each serving. When it comes to seasonings, I'm going to add in paprika and oregano, 1.5 teaspoons of paprika and 1 teaspoon of oregano. Then add in 1.5 teaspoons of salt and 1/2 teaspoon of pepper. Our chicken is going to cook in chicken broth, so I measured out 2 cups of broth, but you do need to add enough broth to cover the chicken, so I needed to add it a little extra more here. Bring this to a simmer and then cover it and let it cook around 15 minutes or so, or just until the chicken is cooked through. The original recipe did say to remove the chicken and then shred it and add it back in, but I thought that the whole mixture just looked a little bit too chunky for me with the cauliflower and the roasted peppers, so I had this brilliant idea to add it all to a food processor and blend it down until smooth. I probably should have removed the chicken and just blended up the veggies and the broth together to make that puree, because it just kind of looked a little weird with this weirdly chunks of chicken. They weren't even chunks, they were just shreds. Kind of looked like rice. But hindsight is always 20/20, and it really didn't matter because it still tasted fabulous anyway. So after that was all pureed, I returned it to the pot and added in a few handfuls of baby spinach, a block of cream cheese, and about 3/4 of a cup of crumbled feta cheese. And feta is a really good source of protein as well. Let that cook until the spinach is wilted and the cheese is all melted. In the video, she used pita to scoop up all the goods. I found some low-carb pitas, but you could just enjoy this by the spoonful too. But adding the pita was really, really good. I really like this recipe and I love that it made a lot. If you want to check out some more of my recipes that are high protein and low carb that have helped me to lose 40 pounds over the last year and a half, just click right here.